Right to Life Radio with John Girardi on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400, a production of the Right to Life of Central California. And now, here's your host, John Girardi.
This is John Girardi with Right to Life Radio, and as we do every first Saturday of the month, it's time for Stories from the Sidewalk with Linda Teliha, our employee here at Right to Life, who is out at our outreach center every week interacting with women and couples going into and out of Planned Parenthood. Linda, welcome back to Right to Life Radio.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now, I often joke that Right to Life kind of has, we have our warm, fuzzy side and then our big, dumb nerd side. So the warm, fuzzy side is actually interacting with women, talking with women, sharing stories.
I thought you were going to say I was warm and fuzzy, and I was that's the very first time anyone's ever said that.
Stories from the sidewalk is always, this is our warm and,
maybe.
the stories are, this is our warm and fuzzy
Linda?
part.
She's so warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, exactly. So we have our warm and fuzzy stuff of talking about the stories of women we're interacting with and helping them to choose life. And then we have the kind of, from me and Jonathan doing the nerdy, oftentimes the sort of, this is the news about abortion, it's public policy stuff or courts or things like that. And this hopefully will be a segment where that kind of molds together. It's about sort of our experiences, Linda's actual experience of interacting with these women, working with women, and understanding what they need. And then we'll compare that against what California wants to do for the problem of abortion. So, Linda, I think first we'll start off with a young lady that you were interacting with who made the choice for life, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about her story.
Okay. And I mean, you're right. All the stuff that you guys are doing and talking about, it does actually work. And I think that's the most important reason why I'm here, is to say, not just, it works, it's going to work, blah, blah, but here's who it's worked for. And one of the people that it's worked for is a person named Aleda, and she's totally fine with me saying her name. And
okay, good.
Because she's proud and happy that she changed her mind. She came into the building, and at a certain point in the middle of the conversation, she just looked at me and says, I'm pro-life.
Okay, there you go.
So, I just changed now.
And where? Let me just ask the physical, how you intersected with. Was she walking into an appointment at Planned Parenthood? Was she walking out? Like, how did you you physically actually first get in touch with her?
Well, she was actually standing outside of the Planned Parenthood clinic, and she was looking a little distraught. I don't know whether that's right to say little distraught, because that's
fine.
Almost
oxymoron.
Was she distraught or was she not?
Slightly extreme. Yeah. Okay.
So she was looking sad,
a little perturbed. There you go.
And so we have started using flowers to encourage people to come over and talk to us. I'm not sure what it is about fresh flowers that gets people happy.
That's a great conversation starter.
Yeah, they just come over. And so I offered her a flower, and she came over, and I asked her what was going on. And she said, well, I'm pregnant, and I don't know what else to do but have an abortion. And I said, would you like to talk about it? And she said yes, which is perfect for me. It's like,
that's the best response you can have.
I don't have to be like, I'll give you another flower.
Yeah.
Come on over.
Yeah. Sure.
She was like, sure. So we went over to the building, and we just had a really long, heartfelt conversation about all of the different dynamics of being pregnant and your life changing that day. And that's really what's happening, is all of a sudden you get this news that your whole life is going to change. And that's scary. It doesn't even matter what it is. Pregnant, whatever.
It's scary when you're married and have a stable job.
That's for sure.
And in fact, with every pregnancy in my family, it's been slightly a little scarier in different ways. After baby number 4. Anyway.
I know that feeling.
So anyway. But it's scary.
Yeah, it's scary. And so sometimes, most of the time, I'm finding it isn't that the person does not want to have the baby. They just don't want to have their life changed forever. And the way that the general population portrays pregnancy is mostly negative.
Sure.
I mean, that's silly, but it is. I mean, we get excited when it's our own pregnancy and within our families most of the time. But all the media out there is saying, oh my gosh, you get pregnant, your school's over, you're never going to finish school, you're never going to get a job, you're never going to stay married, you're never going to get married,
Right.
and you're going to get fat and you'll be ugly.
Yeah.
Well,
And you'll be morning sickness, and you'll
right, you won't be able to find any clothes.
Yeah.
But once I sit down with these young moms and we talk about things, it starts to unroll that they're worried about this and that, and we just sort of talk about the different possibilities, and then most of the time they kind of get going and they're like, oh yeah, I could do that, and I could do that too, and those people support me. And
right. And it's often a thing of they don't have enough sort of security factors in their life to sort of help support them, or they do, but they don't even realize it.
That's the big thing. So with Aleda, she just needed some reassurance, because there is, I don't care what anyone says, there's a maternal instinct.
Yeah.
Once you're pregnant, that's the hard part, because there's something inside of you saying, this is my
baby.
child.
Yeah.
I don't care how many pro-choice people out there say, oh, no, it's not that way. That's why it's so hard.
Yeah.
Otherwise there wouldn't be all this controversy. Well, anyway, so once we started talking, she was able to kind of look at the situation and realize that maybe she did have some support. She has a supportive man in her life, and she has a supportive family, and she is a go-getter. I mean, like I said, she said, I'm pro-life. Well, I can fully see her working as a pro-life advocate now.
Yeah.
It went from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
So, and then the rest of that is that she has kept in touch with me. I mean, I'll just be going along and I'll get a text that says, hey, Linda, just wanted to say hi. Everything going okay?
Yeah.
And then the other day, I just happened to be looking at Instagram and I noticed they had gotten in a car accident. And so I texted her and said, are you okay? And the next day she actually called and said, well, we're actually on the way to have an ultrasound. Just want to make sure everything's okay. And so I said, well, do you need someone to go? And she was like, yeah, sure. And I said, no, if you have someone to go with, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can bow out. And she's like, no, I really would like you to come. I'd like to have another person there. So we made our way over to a clinic that's actually run by Dr. Holmes on our board.
Right. Yeah. Dr. Amy Holmes, who's a longtime member of the Right to Life board and who's going to be the medical director, who is the medical director for our Obria clinics.
Yeah.
Which as of this episode, actually, as of this episode, our Obria clinic will be opening on Wednesday, January 5th. So anyway, and it's already starting to field phone calls for scheduling appointments and stuff like that. So it's very exciting.
So here we are, a segue.
Yeah.
I mean, to make it impersonal.
Well, sure.
Into having our very first person who changed their mind and is going to be probably being seen at Obria.
Yeah.
And
patient number one.
And also will come out for the better and be telling everyone, this is my experience. And she knows. What I said was the truth. We will help.
Yeah. And that's the thing that, I'm going to lead this into some stuff that is happening with our state legislature. So again, with her, and you've seen this with so many of these different women that we've interacted with or helped, or even women who talked with us, but then still went ahead with it, is that they need help. They need help with, and they need help with physical needs, healthcare needs, all these different kinds of things. The state of California, the governor instituted this commission with the looming possibility that Roe v. Wade's going to get overturned, called the California Future of Abortion Council. And it's basically a group of 40 abortion advocates and abortion providers.
Isn't that sort of an oxymoron there too? Future
of abortion. Given
there's
that
no future.
Given that so many futures are being cut off. Yeah, exactly. It's sick. Yeah, not the future of prenatal health care, not the future of maternal care,
not the future
not
of
the future
our
of poverty.
Population
no, it's future of abortion. And it's a bunch of abortion providers all recommending policies that will directly financially benefit themselves.
Yep.
So among the proposals that are going to be in front of the legislature this year include to pay for airfare and lodging and childcare for out-of-state people coming to California to pay for abortions, to provide Medi-Cal coverage for out-of-state people coming to California to have abortions.
I guess we have a lot of money here in California.
Well, apparently we've got a budget surplus. I don't know how that happened. And it's a thing of like, again, the women you're interacting with, so many of them, it's not that they want to have an abortion. They just don't feel like they have the support or the means
to not have one.
To not have one, exactly. I mean, this is the ridiculous thing is that, I mean, some of these policies that they're recommending include eliminating all out-of-pocket payments for abortion, all deductibles, all copays. And
Are there any anyway?
I mean, there are some, presumably, and depending on what kind of insurance you have, I think private insurance
maybe
is more expensive. But it's a thing of like, okay, why don't you make, I mean, we're going to completely 100% cover the cost of every abortion in a way that we don't do for normal pregnancy.
No.
I mean, it's so, they're so solicitous to cover the cost of abortion when, again, like, abortion isn't the thing that they need. They need help with a bunch of other stuff, and they view abortion as the only available solution. So it's just so, it's so callous to me that it's like, I think it makes it really clear to me that what the state of California is looking out for is not women. It's not women that they're concerned about. They're concerned with the pocketbooks of abortion providers.
So let me, now that you're mentioning all of these things that can be provided and are provided, I just want to make it clear that they are being provided. That we actually had a little breakfast to celebrate the decision that Aleida made. Yeah. And several of our board members came. And I also invited someone to come who has come and participated on the sidewalk. It's a man. Aleida's, I don't know whether he's his boyfriend. I was going to say fiance, but that would be jumping the gun.
Yeah, boyfriend. Yeah.
Her man friend.
Yeah. Who is the dad?
Yeah, father of the baby, and is completely supportive. Needs a little bit of help with schooling and stuff. So I invited someone to come who is going to mentor him. We are going to have a baby shower for her.
Right.
I just helped orchestrate a maternity clothes drive through Fresno State. The Students for Life on campus participated and brought in a bunch of maternity clothes and baby clothes. Let's see. I mean, I pointed her in the direction of getting a free ultrasound.
Yeah.
It could just keep going. Whatever she asked for, we have.
Right. And that's sort of what we want in our little pro-life universe here in Fresno. Between Right to Life, initially interacting with these women, Obria providing prenatal care, and to connect women, because there are a lot of people locally who want to help.
Really.
Yeah. There are a lot of.
They have a community.
Yeah, whether it's with mentors that they need, if it's food that they need, get them food. If it's lodging they need, help get them lodging. Like, there's so many people locally, so many great charities that we're friendly with, between Catholic Charities, Evangel Home, all these different wonderful organizations. And again, it's to, the problem that these women are facing, again, is not. I mean, the left is always making these sort of esoteric arguments of, oh, it's an imposition on bodily autonomy. No, that's not what these women are complaining about. They're not complaining about the mechanics of it difficult being pregnant, although it certainly is difficult being pregnant. But what they're complaining about is how their life will be changed forever.
Well, that's sort of ironic, because whenever I talk to someone who's on the fence and they say, oh, if I go ahead and have this baby, I'm not giving it up for adoption. So it's just a matter of getting through, and then they want their baby. They just don't want the in-between hard part.
Right, exactly. So anyway, Linda, thank you so much. It's always good having you for Stories on the Sidewalk. All right, when we return, we'll be joined by Jonathan Keller. We'll be talking about more of these issues next on Right to Life Radio, a production, as always, of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I am now joined by the Director of California Family Council, the CEO of California Family Council, my good buddy, Mr. Jonathan Keller, and we're here to talk about redistricting. What's up, Jonathan?
Good to be here, and great to always hear those fantastic stories from the sidewalk.
Yes, of course. Always good to hear from Linda about what's going on over there with Stories from the Sidewalk. All right, so we're going to talk about something a little weird, which is redistricting. Now, every 10 years, the California legislature, let me go back. Every 10 years, state legislatures around the country draw new lines. They redistrict. They basically do redistricting in order to adjust for changes in population over the past 10 years. It happens every time we have a census. And so we have new lines that are drawn in California for members of the U.S. House of Representatives who represent us in Congress, and for members of the California State Assembly and California State Senate. Now, why are we talking about that on Right to Life Radio? So, when you do redistricting, obviously it alters the political fortunes of local politicians. A local politician who represented one kind of district might be representing a different looking kind of district. Basically, they have to run for a different kind of office. A Republican who maybe had a safe seat, that the majority of people were Republican, he might now be representing a district that's more Democrat. So, Jonathan, the California redistricting, now California does redistricting weird. Most states have it just the state legislature just votes on redistricting. California has an independent commission full of partisans from both sides. Yeah, who try to stack, and Republicans and Democrats furiously to try to stack it with as many partisans for their side as they can. That has redrawn the district lines. And so this could have a big impact on abortion policy as California is gearing up to introduce a whole suite of insane abortion legislation this year to basically make California a quote, abortion sanctuary state, a magnet for people to come to for abortion. So, Jonathan, what are some ways in which you think this new redistricting stuff could impact abortion policy? I mean, I think from our initial view, it does not look hopeful. And if anything, if the congressional maps are any indication, it actually looks like things could get even worse in California, if that's even physically possible.
Well, so the line that I saw here from Dave Wasserman at Redistrict. Now, granted, this was a couple weeks ago, so they're waiting to see what the final numbers are. I mean, all of this, it's a little ridiculous, John, because they go back and forth and they do a draft and then, well, no, someone doesn't like this. And so they go back and forth and up and down. And the current draft, it says all 42 Democratic incumbents, save one who's retiring, get strong seats. And then 5 of the 11 GOP seats get more vulnerable. And in some of them, significantly more vulnerable, like Tom McClintock's seat in the 4th Congressional District. If this map holds, instead of being a Trump plus 10 district, it would go to Trump plus 2, which that's pretty swingy. There's a good chance that he could lose. David Valadio's district, which he won, he took it back. That seat flipped back and forth between 2018 and 2020. It was already Biden plus 11. It would now be Biden plus 13.
Right.
And for those of you who understand, when we say those numbers, we're talking about that is the percentage by which if the district had existed in 2020, that's how it would have voted for the presidential race.
Right, exactly. So it's not super hopeful. I mean, that's the thing is, so I think it's not very hopeful for abortion policy, and I think that for 2 reasons. One is that the new lines might just be terrible. 2 is that we're looking at this huge suite of abortion regulations now. We're looking at them this year before the election, not after. And it's a bunch of people who are in their current districts, but those current district lines won't exist after, for the purposes of the November elections. Those district lines don't exist. So people, I think, will feel very free to just vote. All of the Democrats will feel very free to just vote for the most radical things they could possibly do, because I think probably a lot of people will be retiring. A lot of people will be, maybe making different decisions about who's going to vote. They'll be facing primary challenges. And, furthermore, so many of these Democrat seats look very, very safe. So I'm
too safe, unfortunately.
So,
John, this is a problem that is not just in California, but nationwide. I need to go back and look at this initial tweet, but it'll be something we'll know more really probably by the end of this month or by beginning of February, because that's when a lot of these people are going to announce their candidacies.
Right.
But essentially, the competitiveness of all districts nationwide went down. These districts are just getting more and more polarized and more extremely partisan.
We'll talk about this as it relates to California a little bit more next. This is Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400. Thank you all so much for listening to Right to Life Radio, a production, as always, of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. All right, Mr. Jonathan, We are discussing today the redistricting that's happening in California. I think it provides me with occasion to talk about some of the bigger problems with California politics that impact the life issues. I don't want anyone to think that I'm purely just saying Republican equals pro-life, Democrat equals pro-choice, because that has not been the case, particularly in California politics, for a long, long time.
Sadly. Going back to Pete Wilson and even before.
Yeah. And we say sadly because it means that a lot of Republicans were pro-choice. It's great when Democrats are pro-life. It's terrible when Republicans are pro-choice.
Yep.
So I think the only kind of pro-life Democrat is Rudy Salas, who I believe is running for Congress against in David Valadio's kind of old /new district.
It'll depend on how they redistrict everything, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. So
again,
anyway.
which I will say, just as a side note of ridiculousness, you have elected officials announcing their candidacy for districts that don't even exist.
That don't quite exist yet.
I
But
am running
now they kind of exist
for this general part of the state.
Yeah. for whatever winds up being here. That's
Stay
what I'm gonna
tuned
run
to find
for.
out if you can vote for me.
Right.
Or
exactly.
not.
Yeah,
Maybe.
or not. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Now that the lines have been kind of set, it gives us an opportunity to see. And the initial results are not promising, both for the state legislature and for the House of Representatives. And it brings me back. Let's understand the current political dynamics in California politics, just so we have an understanding of the baseline here for understanding our difficulties with stopping abortion policy. Sometimes people ask me, I'll mention, the Democrats have introduced this terrible abortion bill. People say, can we stop it? Well, let's
define stop.
Let's just understand the numbers. All right. First, to stop a budget or a tax increase in California, all you need is a third of the votes in the state assembly or the state senate. Just a third. It's not a lot. It's just a third.
Yep.
Republicans, and again, when I say Republicans, I'm not saying necessarily pro-life people. I think most of the Republicans are pro-life. I don't know if every Republican anymore is still pro-life.
You could just...
I think most of the pro-choice Republicans have all gotten voted out in favor of Democrats.
And
at this point.
John, I'll give you a specific answer on that. There were two pro-life... there were two pro-choice Republicans that were in office up until 2018, the 2018 election.
Yeah, and then
there was Catherine Baker from the she represented like Santa Clara area.
Yeah, I hated her guts.
She was Catholic, but pro-choice.
And then there was crazy about it though.
And then there was Brian Mainshine from the San Diego area.
I hated his guts too. That guy was.
Both of these. So they were the kind of the two token pro-choice Republicans in the California delegation. Well, Catherine Baker, surprise, surprise, lost her seat because the voters there realized, why have a milquetoast sort of Democrat who's a poser with an R behind her name when you can just elect the real deal and have a hard left Democrat?
Yeah. Why drink diet? Why drink diet Democrat when you can have the real thing?
Yeah. So they voted her out of office.
Right.
And Brian Mainshine in San Diego won his reelection as a Republican by like 800 votes in his
total.
seat.
Didn't he change parties?
He won his election and in the beginning of the session, literally, he won in November.
Yeah.
In, I think, January or February, he holds a big press conference and, hey, I'm a Democrat now. I'm switching parties.
I knew I hated his guts.
And the thing that's amazing
to be clear, just the deceitfulness of that.
Oh, yes.
Not that I care if you're a Republican or Democrat. And I also hated his guts for the pro-choice
But,
stuff.
but you got to think of all the people who either donated to his campaign or you think of the pro-life Republicans who maybe held their noses and voted for him and said,
well, maybe he'll try to vote against some kind of abortion funding or something.
Maybe at least he'll be slightly better on this issue. Mm-hmm. And both of them, I like I said, I wish that this was not a partisan thing, but the pro-choice.
Yeah, well, all of the pro-choice Republicans have left, and
they've
the
taken
Democrats
off the mask.
And Democrats have pretty well purged all pro-life Democrats from their midst. I think Rudy Salas is kind of the only Democrat who's kind of sort of pro-life. So, as we said, you need a third of the votes to stop a budget from getting passed in California or to stop a tax increase in California. Republicans don't even have a fourth of the votes.
Nope.
for those of you from Rio Linda, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, for those of you from Rio Linda, a fourth is smaller than a third. Even though it's got a 4 in it, and 4 is bigger than 3. But no, a fourth is actually smaller than a third. So of the 80 members of the state assembly, 19 of them are Republicans. Of the 40 members of the state senate, 9 of them are Republicans. And again, I'm just using that conveniently. Again, not all Republicans are pro-life, not all Democrats are pro-choice, although actually in California, I think that is almost true. So when Jonathan and I talk about these proposals for, let's pay for childcare for people having abortions. Let's pay for people to fly to California to have abortions. Let's do this. Let's do that. Understand that if all of the pro-life people in the state legislature all banded together to all vote against it, they can't do jack, okay? They can't stop it. So the only thing we have to rely on is some hope that that value-neutral pragmatism can outweigh ideology. And usually we do that through some combo of trying to say this costs too much, we don't have the money, that this is not actually a real problem that needs a real solution, that there's an infrastructural problem, it'll face legal challenges, blah, blah, blah. We can present all of those arguments, and the thing might still pass, okay?
Yes.
With SB 24, we successfully blocked it.
When it was SB 320.
When it was SB 320, Jerry Brown vetoed it. SB 24, which is the law that requires chemical abortion at all the student health centers of all the CSUs and UCs. Jerry Brown vetoed that the year prior. It got stopped in the legislature, I believe, the year before that, too. Because even Jerry Brown was convinced, this is going to cost a lot of money. We don't have the infrastructure for this. We don't have the blah, blah, blah. This is going to be blah, 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 blah. Well, then Governor Newsom comes into office, and Governor Newsom is somehow even crazier than Jerry Brown when it comes to the abortion thing. And so he just signs it in the law. All the practicalities be damned. So if the Democrats are all together, there's nothing to stop it. And I will also note this temporal timeline. That's kind of redundant. This timeline. All right. Governor Schwarzenegger is elected.
Yep.
Kind of the high point of Republican governance in California in my lifetime. I don't know, maybe 1994 when I think Californian Republicans had the assembly and the governor's seat. Governor Schwarzenegger gets elected in 2003. And he has a couple of big debates over the budget in California. And so Governor Schwarzenegger, he's very upset. I don't like the infighting. I don't like the partisanship. We have to do something. We have to stop it. So he's very upset about partisanship. Because a bunch
he was
of
so
Republicans,
concerned about it.
Yeah,
that's why he did that famous anagram letter that he sent to the legislature.
I don't remember this.
Oh, okay. Keep talking.
All right.
Keep talking.
So anyway, Governor Schwarzenegger was mad because a bunch of Republicans didn't like his budget, and the bunch tried to stop him. So he was all, upset about partisanship in the state legislature, like a politician being upset that members of a state legislature had a dispute over the budget. Get over yourself, okay? You were in commando. You should be okay with conflict. This is really pretty tame. Okay, so he was in Predator, for God's sake. Anyway,
That's right.
So Schwarzenegger introduces two ideas: the jungle primary system, the top two primary system, and the idea of an independent citizens redistricting commission, so that it's not the state legislature drawing the lines; it's an independent, nonpartisan commission of citizens drawing the boundary lines for the state legislative districts. And he did this with the explicit goal of tinkering with California democracy, basically to have the outcome of more moderate politicians, which I think is not any of his business, frankly, the tenor of politicians that Californians elect. I don't think that the governor, from a kind of pro-democracy point of view, who died and made Arnold Schwarzenegger the Pope? I mean, he's already, he was already various kinds of superheroes, but I don't recall him ever becoming the Pope to get to decide whether or not California is going to have, or George Washington or something, or Thomas Jefferson, to decide whether or not California is going to have, more or less partisan politicians. Anyway, so After that, I'll note that Republicans in California have not won a single statewide office, and the Republican Party in California has slowly decreased to having, again, less than a quarter of all the votes in both houses of the legislature, as this new independent commission has reliably had resulted in both political parties aggressively trying to stack the independent commission with partisans for their side in order to create, again, more safe, more partisan political districts. So, and the top two primary system has ensured that often Republicans aren't even one of the final two people that people get to choose between on Election Day in November. So, yeah, Governor Schwarzenegger accomplished his goal of getting rid of rancor and division in Sacramento. He did it by achieving one-party rule. Yeah, there's no debate anymore. Everyone in Sacramento is very cordial to one another now. Why? Because there's nobody to oppose anything. The Republicans can do anything they want, and no one will disagree. If the Democrats internally just agree on something, it is law.
Sadly, that's just...
So, this leads me to my next point. How can we do anything? What hope is there for us pro-lifers? There never was much hope. Just a fool's hope, Frodo. Or Pippin, whoever Gandalf was talking to there. But I do think there's some hope. All right, let me explain. If the Dobbs case is decided the right way, this is the big Supreme Court case to decide whether or not we're overturning Roe v. Wade. Obviously, this would allow every state legislature in the state to regulate abortion however they want. Well, it's not obvious. That's what it would do. And obviously, this is obvious. The California state legislature is not going to restrict abortion at all. They are going to wildly expand abortion. Now, I would say a majority, Jonathan, of Californians are pro-choice. I think that's fair to say.
I think, sadly, that is correct.
I think that, sadly, that is true.
At least in the most general sense of the term.
Yes. However, I do believe this, and maybe I'll get to this in the next segment a little bit more. I think there is a big disconnect between how pro-choice our governor is, our state legislature is, and how pro-choice exactly the average, even Democrat voter in this state is. I don't believe that the people of California are actually as pro-choice as our leadership. I think, our state legislature is disproportionately Democrat. I think our state legislature is disproportionately pro-life. I think the kinds of policies they are advocating go unnoticed because I think a lot of state legislative issues go unnoticed. I think people don't pay attention to what happens in the California state legislature. If you're watching Fox News or CNN all the time, they don't cover the kinds of things that are happening in Sacramento because it's a national platform. I think, it's just me, I think there is some room for political action in California to limit some of the extremes of what the Democrats want to do in our state legislature with abortion. I'll explain more after the break. This is Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400. John Girardi for Right to Life Radio. Right to Life Radio. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Production, as always, of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. Thank you so much. And thanks for another great year of Right to Life Radio. And looking forward to another great year right here on Power Talk every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. With all of you. All right, Jonathan, I want to talk about how pro-choice is California really. So this is my thesis. My broad thesis is that California is not as pro-choice as it seems. Our state legislature, highly, highly, highly pro-choice. Our governor, extremely, extremely, extremely pro-choice. But are the people of California super pro-choice? Now, the thing is, it's not exactly a binary. There are, go ahead.
I was going to say that this is part of the problem with all abortion polling. I mean, all issue polling in general
is difficult.
I know some people just hate issue polling because it really depends on the way that you ask the question.
Oh, sure.
And I even heard there was actually a really, really good podcast on a liberal podcast network. Some of you might have heard of Nate Silver and 538. Mm-hmm. He's a guru with polling. But one of the people who writes for them, Amelia Thompson DeVoe was her name. She is obviously, listening to it, she's very pro-choice. I don't know that I'd say she's an activist, but personally, she's very pro-choice.
Sure.
But even she was acknowledging, look, Americans are kind of schizophrenic on abortion when it comes to issue polling, because they say, if you ask them the question, do you think Roe v. Wade should be overturned? Oh, no, Roe v. Wade. And there is a majority of people who think Roe v. Wade should not be overturned. And then people say, if you ask the question differently, do you think that third trimester abortions should be allowed? Oh, no, that's horrible.
Of course not.
I can't believe it.
No. And no one understands that Roe v. Wade makes third trimester abortions have to be legal.
Well, what about killing children for causes of gender selection? No, that's atrocious.
Roe v. Wade requires that has to be legal.
Yes.
Exactly. And so I think whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, it's really more like a spectrum than it is like a binary yes or no. I think there are some people who are maybe pro-choice, but they're not necessarily in favor of, state funding for abortion, or they're not necessarily in favor of late-term abortions, or not necessarily in favor of their taxpayer dollars being spent on abortion, blah, blah, blah. Well, I also think that people are largely ignorant of what happens at the state legislature. I think there's a huge divide between your average state legislator and your average voter. State legislators in California represent more people per legislator than the state legislatures of any other state in the union. Okay, your average state assemblyman is representing 500,000 residents. Your average state senator is representing 1 million residents in California. Okay, those numbers are more whacked out than any state legislature in the country. So there's a divide between the voter and the legislator. Local media sources are used less and less and less. National media is being relied upon more and more and more between the internet and cable news. People are watching Fox News, they're watching CNN, they're watching MSNBC more so than they're watching their local news. So, and I think even local outlets don't do a great job of covering what's happening at the state legislature unless you really get into it. Oftentimes, like Jonathan, we've often complained about this with abortion laws in the state legislature, that the press will only report on it after the law passed.
Yes.
So how can I get my supporters, to be agitated about this when the bill hasn't even been reported on until after it's already passed? So the Democrats are going to try to ram through the state legislature this year a ton of insane abortion laws. Insane.
Yes.
And they're going to pass because the Democrats have 3/4 of the seats in both houses, and Governor Newsom's a psycho.
And when we say a ton, let me just reiterate. In last week's show, we talked about this Future of Abortion Council document and everything.
Yeah.
45 different specific policy recommendations. 45.
Right. Yeah. Paying for childcare while you have an abortion, paying for travel and lodging for people coming out of state to have abortions in California.
And John, I didn't really think about this because maybe I'm too naive, but I had people that pointed out, they said, well, wait a minute. So if they'll pay for childcare, if they'll pay for airfare, blah, 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 lodging, what if you get them to basically pay for your vacation to California? You get pregnant.
Just as long as you have an abortion while you're on vacation.
Yeah, you have your abortion, and that underwrites your trip. But then, you spend a couple of days at Disneyland.
Yeah, of course. So here's my thought. Between the referendum process, ballot initiative process, if Dobbs is overruled, especially, I think there are opportunities for us in the pro-life world to, through the ballot initiative system, through the referendum system, to basically roll back a bill that the state legislature has passed. I think we can make some headway as pro-lifers if we put these issues in front of the people. Because I don't believe that the people of California are as pro-choice as our legislature or as our governor. That'll do it for Right to Life Radio. We'll see you next week.